Do you ever feel like you're running on a treadmill, working harder and longer, yet somehow staying in the exact same place? We live in a world obsessed with more. More emails, more meetings, more tasks. But what if most of that more is actually holding you back? What if I told you that 80% of what you do today doesn't actually matter for your long-term success? Welcome to the Pareto Principle. Today, we're going to show you how to achieve significantly more by actually doing less. The 80-20 rule, how to achieve more by doing less. It sounds like a magic trick, but it's actually a mathematical reality observed for over a century. It all started in 1896 with an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. Pareto noticed something peculiar in his garden. 20% of his pea pods were producing 80% of the peas. He then looked at the economy and found that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the population. This became the core of the Pareto Principle. The minority of your inputs lead to the majority of your outputs. In other words, things aren't distributed equally. Some efforts are simply more valuable than others. And once you start seeing this pattern, you'll realize it's everywhere. Let's look at some real-world examples. In business, it's a standard rule of thumb. 80% of a company's revenue usually comes from just 20% of its customers. Focusing on that top tier is how businesses scale without burning out. Think about your own to-do list. Out of 10 items, only 2 of them are truly needle movers. These are the vital few tasks that lead to the biggest progress in your career or life. It even applies to your lifestyle. Think about your closet. You probably wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. The rest is just noise. The rest is just taking up space. But let's take this a step further. How does this look in practice for some of the world's most successful organizations? Take Apple, for example. When Steve Jobs returned in 1997, he famously cut 70% of Apple's product line. By focusing on just the vital few products, he saved the company and created the tech giant we know today. Microsoft found a similar pattern. They realized that by fixing the top 20% of reported bugs, they could eliminate 80% of the system crashes and related problems. Impact is never distributed equally. So why do we struggle with this? Why do we default to being busy instead of effective? It's because we've been conditioned to believe that more effort always equals more results. We confuse movement with progress. We think that if we're busy, we must be effective. But that's a trap. Society teaches us that every task is equal, that every hour spent working should yield the same result. But it doesn't. This is what productivity experts call the vital few versus the trivial many. The trivial many are those low-value tasks that eat up 80% of your time, but only give you 20% of your results. So how do we fix this? How do we stop the grind and start the growth? Here are 3 actionable steps. Step 1, perform an audit. Most people have no idea where their time actually goes. For the next 3 days, track every single thing you do, no matter how small. Be honest with your time. Step 2, identify the vital few. Look at your list and ask, which 20% drives 80% of my joy or progress? Ask yourself, if I could only do one thing today that would have the biggest impact, what would it be? That is your top 20%. That is where your energy needs to go first before anything else. Step 3, be ruthless about the other 80%. This is the hardest part. You must say no. You need to either eliminate, delegate, or automate the tasks that don't serve your ultimate goal. Protect your focus. It's not about doing more. It's about having the courage to do less of what doesn't matter. Clear the path for greatness. When you clear the clutter, you create space for excellence. This is how high performers separate themselves. They aren't superhuman. They just have a better filter for their time. They focus on the vital. The 80-20 rule is a reminder that excellence is found in concentration, not dilution. Your time is your most precious asset. Stop trying to juggle everything. Pick the few things that matter and give them everything you've got. The results will follow. If you found this helpful, subscribe to Productive Life. We share systems to help you master your time and your mind. Hit the bell for updates. Thanks for watching. Now go out there and focus on your vital 20. I'll see you in the next one. Productive Life. Master your focus. Master your life.